Sir, this area is strictly for distinguished VIP guests, not retired men in old military coats. That's what the hostess murmured sharply just before snapping her fingers at the security team. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend himself. He simply stood, offered a calm nod, and stepped outside without resistance, letting the rain soak into the shoulders of his jacket. 5 quiet minutes passed. Then came a sound that cut through the evening hush. 3 sleek black SUVs screeched to a halt in front of the hotel. A man in full military dress stepped out, the unmistakable presence of a 4-star general. He walked straight into the VIP lounge, looked at the now empty chair and barked, "Where's the man you just escorted out?" Then, turning to the stunned staff, he delivered a chilling order. "You're all dismissed, effective immediately. If you believe respect is earned by a life of service, not by titles or tailored suits, comment, honor the quiet." Retired Command Sergeant Major Raymond Holt, age 76, had faced mortar fire, ambushes, and battlefield trauma across decades of service. But he never thought he'd face disrespect at a gala meant to celebrate veterans. He had been personally invited to a prestigious appreciation event hosted at a high-end hotel. His appearance was humble but tidy. Polished boots, neatly pressed khakis, and the same weathered army jacket he'd worn on his final deployment. As he stepped into the VIP lounge, he gave a courteous nod to the hostess at the reception. She scanned him from head to toe, eyes narrowing with disapproval. "This section is for those on the official VIP list," she said curtly. Raymond produced his invitation, complete with the director's signature. The hostess rolled her eyes. "This must be some sort of mistake," she muttered, signaling security with a flick of her wrist. Raymond didn't resist. He didn't need to. He walked out with the same discipline that had carried him through 30 years of service. He stood under the rain, not waiting for anyone, just standing there, watching, thinking. That's when a hotel bellhop, barely in his 20s, spotted him. A flash of recognition crossed his face. He whispered into his phone with urgency, eyes never leaving the old soldier. Inside, the mood was festive. Champagne flowed. Laughter echoed. The hostess, having dismissed Raymond, turned her full attention to shaking hands with celebrities and influencers, wrapped in designer clothes and empty gestures. Meanwhile, outside, the bellhop approached slowly. "Were you stationed in Kandahar back in 2010? Raymond gave a slight nod. "I thought so. You pulled Martinez out of that building. He was my bunkmate." Raymond stayed silent. Some deeds are bigger than words. The bellhop stepped back, already dialing, his voice low but firm. "He's here, sir." Rain continued to fall, but Raymond stood steady. Years of waiting in combat zones had given him the kind of stillness no storm could shake. Inside, the event began. The gala organizer raised her glass and spoke solemnly about honoring the brave, while the bravest man present stood alone in the rain outside. An elderly couple leaving the hotel noticed Raymond. The man wore a Vietnam vet cap. "They wouldn't let you in either?" Raymond offered a wry smile. "Guess my outfit didn't pass inspection." The old man frowned. "What unit?" 75th Rangers, then Special Forces," Raymond replied. The man blinked in surprise, then gave a respectful nod. "You want us to talk to the organizers?" "Appreciate it," Raymond said, "but I've waited in worse places than this." The couple walked off reluctantly, glancing back. Raymond checked his watch. 7 p.m., time for the opening remarks. He had promised himself he would attend this gala, not for the applause, not for the dinner, but to represent the friends who never made it back. Even if he had to wait out in the cold and rain, he would keep that promise. His posture never wavered. His pride never bent. His silence never broke. What was a little rain to a man who had walked through war? What was a moment of humiliation when he carried the weight of those who never came home? He stood like a statue, still, proud, and utterly ignored. Inside, speeches droned on, praising service, while the one man who had actually lived it remained unseen. And then, tires squealed. The SUVs rolled in, bold and sudden. Staff rushed to the entrance, confused and concerned. "Is there a security threat?" someone whispered. "Number something more powerful." Out stepped a 4-star general, uniform perfect, expression unreadable. "Where is Command Sergeant Major Holt?" the hostess stammered. I didn't recognize him. I asked him to leave." "You asked a Medal of Honor recipient to leave a veterans gala?" "I didn't know." You didn't ask. You assumed. The general turned to the rest of the stunned room. I came here tonight because he said he would be attending. If he's not welcome, I'm not staying. He pulled out his phone. Cancel the sponsorship. We're relocating the event. The hotel manager stepped forward, his voice cracking slightly. Sir, we truly didn't know. The general turned slowly, gaze unflinching. Then you've got no business organizing events meant to honor people like him. He pivoted to the nearby staff, who were frozen in place. As of now, you're dismissed. A hush swept over the room like a sudden fog. Eyes darted between the general, now brimming with controlled fury, and the hostess, whose face had gone pale as porcelain. General Reynolds, please, the event coordinator began, stepping forward nervously. There's been some confusion. Confusion? The general's voice sliced through the murmur like steel. Command Sergeant Major Raymond Holt has earned 3 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, and the Medal of Honor. 26 men owe their lives to him after Fallujah. 26. When others fell back, he stepped forward. He's the reason some of us ever made it home. He paused just long enough for the weight of his words to land. And you dismissed him, because he wasn't dressed like a politician. The hostess's hands trembled, eyes wide. He didn't mention any medals, she whispered. Exactly, the general said, cutting her off. Men like that don't need to. They carry their honor in silence. Hotel security had cautiously stepped closer, unsure of what to do. One of them offered hesitantly, Sir, maybe we can fix this? The general didn't blink. Then start by finding Sergeant Major Holt and bringing him back, and do it with the kind of dignity he's earned 100 times over. In the crowd, tension thickened. Phones were slipped quietly back into pockets. The event photographer, who'd been snapping pictures all evening, lowered his camera and stepped away. Even the corporate sponsor near the buffet shifted awkwardly, adjusting his tie and suddenly very aware of his surroundings. The hotel manager, no longer trying to defend himself, turned and hurried toward the entrance, nearly tripping in his haste. The general took one final look at the silent room. He wasn't done. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice deep and deliberate, I want each of you to take a moment and reflect on why you're actually here. Is it for the networking, the media coverage, the catered shrimp cocktail? He scanned their faces, eyes hard. This event was supposed to honor men and women who didn't think twice about risking everything. People who gave not just what they were asked, but far more than anyone had the right to demand. He let the silence settle again. So if you can't recognize the kind of greatness that walks in without a spotlight, maybe you shouldn't be holding the mic. The general let his gaze sweep across the entire room. Each eye he met seemed to flinch just a little, as if holding up a mirror. Tell me, he said slowly, how many of you here tonight have worn the uniform? A few hands raised, tentatively, as if unsure whether it was safe to admit it now. And how many of you, he continued, could recognize true service, if it didn't come dressed in medals or crisp attire? No hands, not one. Outside, the rain had lightened to a soft drizzle. Raymond stood in the same spot, hands folded behind his back, the quiet dignity of his stance unaffected by the cold or the rejection. It wasn't new to him, waiting, being unseen, carrying weight that others couldn't. He had stood in worse weather, waited in more dangerous silence. The hotel manager, breath ragged and suit soaked, burst through the front doors. Sergeant Major Holt, please, you must come back in. General Reynolds is asking for you personally. Raymond didn't move at first. His face remained unreadable, his eyes calm. I don't want to cause a scene, he said flatly. The manager swallowed hard. Sir, with all due respect, the scene already happened. The general is prepared to pull every dollar of military sponsorship from this event unless you're brought back inside with the honor you've more than earned. Raymond paused, reading the desperation in the man's eyes, the guilt in his posture. Then he nodded once, a simple gesture, a soldier's answer, and followed the manager back toward the hotel. Every step Raymond took through the hallway seemed to echo louder than before. People noticed this time. Phones were raised, not to mock or dismiss, but to document. Not one face was indifferent. As they neared the VIP lounge, the conversations quieted, replaced by murmurs and camera shutters. The crowd, moments ago loud and careless, now parted in silence, as if aware they were witnessing something far greater than a gala. General Reynolds saw him enter and strode toward him with military precision. No hesitation, no delay. He stopped directly in front of Raymond and delivered a crisp, formal salute. "Command Sergeant Major Holt," he said firmly. "I apologize for not arriving sooner, sir." Raymond returned the salute just as perfectly. "No apology necessary, General." But the general's eyes narrowed slightly as he noticed Raymond's damp clothes, the rain still clinging to his sleeves. "Were you standing outside this entire time?" Raymond gave a faint nod. "There was some confusion about my invitation." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The general's jaw clenched. He turned back to the room, scanning the now guilty expressions of those present. "This man saved my life in Fallujah. When our unit was trapped and command called for a retreat, he went back, not once, but 6 times, alone." The words hit like thunder. The room held its breath. Not even the ice in the cocktail glasses dared to clink. "You can have your celebrities," he added coldly, "and your donors with their checkbooks. But the only reason I came tonight was because he did, and if he's not welcome here, then neither am I." The hostess stepped forward, face flushed deep red, hands shaking. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize who he—" "That's the problem," the general snapped, cutting her off. "You shouldn't have to know someone's name to treat them with decency. Dignity should never be earned through rank or recognition. It should be given because it's right, because men like him fought to preserve the very freedom that lets you stand here." He turned again to Raymond. "Sergeant Major, what would you like us to do? We'll relocate the entire event if necessary. My staff's already working on alternative venues." Raymond took a moment. He looked around the room, at the embarrassed expressions, at the people avoiding his eyes, at those who had dismissed him hours ago and were now desperate to be on the right side of history. "No need for all that," he said softly. "I didn't come here for a seat at the table. I came for the men who can't be here. I gave my word I'd show up, and I keep my promises." General Reynolds gave a solemn nod. "Then we continue, but from this point forward, with the respect and purpose this night should have had from the start." The general's voice turned cold once again as he glanced toward the hostess and the security guard who had escorted Raymond out earlier. "As for the 2 of you, start brushing up your resumes. You're dismissed." No ceremony, no room for excuses. Raymond still stood at the lounge entrance, his clothes damp, his boots trailing droplets on the polished floor. His face showed no gloating, no satisfaction, just the steady calm of someone who had faced far worse and walked through it unchanged. His eyes scanned the room, not with judgment, but with a soldier's discipline, registering exits, noting body language, observing with the quiet focus that once kept squads alive during hostile fire. General Reynolds stepped forward, then stood at full attention. "Permission to accompany you this evening, sir," he said, his voice strong but respectful. Raymond tilted his head, the faintest nod of approval forming. "Always granted, General," he replied, his voice finally breaking the silence. Low, steady, a voice carved from decades of command. It was the first time many in the room had actually heard him speak, and just like that, the atmosphere shifted again. Together, the 2 men walked through the grand hallway toward the ballroom. They didn't rush. They didn't glance at the whispers or the stares. Their walk was measured, 2 warriors side by side. Behind them, members of the general's security detail, still in sharp formation, fanned out into a loose circle, not out of necessity, but as a sign of honor, an informal procession for a man who'd earned every step. Phones reappeared in hands, but now there was no mocking, no judgment. Social media posts flew, not about celebrities or fancy decor, but about him, the veteran in the worn jacket, the one the rain couldn't move. Whispers surged. "Is that him? That's the guy from Kandahar. Wait, he's the one from the Fallujah rescue mission, right?" Inside the grand ballroom, the event had carried on, unaware. The MC on stage, surrounded by glimmering lights and projected sponsor logos, was halfway through announcing a new donor. On the giant screen behind him, a slideshow had begun, meant to highlight stories of heroism. Suddenly, it changed. A photo filled the screen. A younger Raymond Holt, face streaked with soot, muscles straining as he carried a bloodied soldier across broken ground. Smoke billowed in the background. Bullets mid-flight. It was the famous image from Fallujah, the one that had circulated in military briefings for years. Some in the room had seen it before. Few had ever met the man in it. The MC faltered. His voice, rehearsed and polished seconds earlier, now cracked. "Ladies and gentlemen," he stammered, visibly shaken. "Please join me in welcoming our actual guest of honor, Command Sergeant Major Raymond Holt." The spotlight, a little too slow and clumsy, spun across the room. It landed on Raymond and General Reynolds just as they stepped through the ballroom doors. There was a moment of hesitation in the crowd. Then recognition rippled like a wave. Polite applause became sincere, then louder, then thunderous. People stood, some with hands over their hearts, others with tears already gathering. The room, so quick to ignore earlier, now strained to show reverence. The MC stepped down quickly, almost nervously, offering the microphone with both hands. Raymond accepted it, not like a speaker, but like someone picking up something fragile, something meaningful. His fingers wrapped around it with the same careful grip he once used to hold onto wounded men during a medevac. He didn't tap it, didn't clear his throat, just began. "I didn't come here to be honored," he said, his voice calm but carrying to every corner of the ballroom. "I came here to speak for those who never got a second chance to walk into rooms like this." And in that instant, even the clink of a fork was too loud. "I came because someone asked me to represent those who couldn't be here," Raymond began, his voice still calm but now laced with quiet steel. He paused, scanning the sea of faces before him. Some moved, some ashamed, others still unsure of how to feel. "I didn't come for a seat at your table. I came to speak for the men who never got one." He let the silence stretch, not for drama, but for gravity. The kind of silence soldiers know well, the kind that fills the space between gunfire and memory. "There are veterans sleeping under bridges tonight," he continued, eyes locking with a donor in a $1,000 tuxedo, who showed more courage before sunrise than most people are asked to show in their entire lives. He let that sit, then added more softly, "They don't need your pity. They've had enough of that. What they need, what they deserve, is your respect. Even when they're not dressed in a way that impresses you, even when their medals are in a drawer and not on display." Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably. A woman lowered her champagne glass. A young man in the back blinked hard, suddenly fighting emotion. Raymond turned to General Reynolds and gave a subtle nod. "Thank you, sir, for seeing me, when others chose not to." Then he looked back to the crowd. "But this night isn't about me. It never was, and it never should be." He handed the microphone back to the stunned MC and stepped out of the spotlight without hesitation. He didn't need it. Heroes rarely do. And yet the impact he left behind rippled like a stone cast into still water. The ballroom froze for a beat, suspended between reflection and reaction. Then slowly, hands came together. First a few, then more, until applause thundered through the hall. It built from polite acknowledgement into a standing ovation that shook the room, not for performance, but for presence, for truth. It lasted nearly 5 full minutes. When it finally quieted, the hotel's executive director stepped nervously onto the stage. Face flushed, tie loosened slightly, he approached the mic like a man preparing for a reckoning. "Commander Sergeant Major Holt," he said with raw sincerity, "on behalf of the entire Westlake Hotel organization, I offer our deepest and most personal apologies." His voice cracked, not from nerves, but from recognition. What happened tonight wasn't just a lapse in hospitality. It was a failure in values, and that failure goes far beyond one staff member. He looked around the room. It speaks to a culture we've allowed to grow, one that confuses wealth with worth. That ends here. He cleared his throat and steadied himself. Starting tomorrow, we'll be working directly with veteran organizations to ensure training, inclusion, and respect, not just at events, but every day. No veteran should have to prove their service to be treated with basic human dignity. Raymond gave him a nod. Not approval, but acknowledgement. He wasn't looking for redemption. He was looking for results. Later, during dinner, Vanessa Mills, the event director, approached him quietly. She didn't come with excuses, just humility. "I should have greeted every veteran personally," she said. "Not just the ones with medals or pressed uniforms. Not just the ones who were easy to recognize." Raymond didn't offer judgment. "Most of the ones who deserve it the most don't ask for it," he replied, and that was all he needed to say. The rain had stopped. The pavement still glistened under the streetlights. Raymond paused at the threshold, looked up at the clearing sky, and then around at the people now seeing him, not as an afterthought, but as an anchor. "Will you be attending next year's event?" the general asked. Raymond turned toward him, eyes steady, voice calm. "If they invite the right people," he said, stepping out into the cool night air. "Not just me, I'll make sure of it personally." As they walked toward the waiting vehicles, Raymond noticed the hostess and security guard being escorted from the building, arms full of boxes, shoulders heavy with shame. He slowed, then with a subtle nod to the general took a detour toward them. "Excuse me," he said quietly. They turned surprised, unsure whether to brace or apologize. Their faces fell instinctively. Raymond didn't scold. He didn't glare. He just looked at them like he had looked at every man under his command, directly, without judgment, only intent. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said. "Just like I got in Fallujah, when command told me to leave those men behind, and I didn't." His voice didn't tremble, but it carried weight, the kind that came from someone who knew what it meant to be counted out, and to return anyway. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out 2 business cards. "My friend runs a veteran support center," he continued. "They need staff who've learned about respect the hard way. Tell them I sent you." The guard stared at the card like it was a pardon. The hostess blinked rapidly, eyes filling with something too heavy to name, not sadness, but release. Their expressions shifted from shame to disbelief to something approaching gratitude. As Raymond turned to rejoin the general, the older man chuckled. "Still saving people, aren't you?" "Old habits," Raymond replied simply. The hotel issued a public apology the next day. Not a generic statement from a PR team, but a real one. Signed by the CEO, broadcast across social media, printed in full-page ads. They didn't stop at words. The event manager was dismissed. The hotel chain donated $5,000 to a local veteran housing initiative. And most importantly, they started fixing the system, Raymond told a reporter who tried to corner him for an exclusive. "Don't fix it for me. Fix it because it's broken." He didn't gloat. He didn't even share the video, but someone else did. A clip of General Reynolds' salute went viral. 9 million views in 1 week, not because of flash, because of truth. It sparked a national conversation. A new initiative, Stand First, Judge Last, was born. A training program designed to help frontline staff at hotels, venues, and event centers recognize veterans by their character, not their clothing. Raymond returned to his quiet life. He still walked the same neighborhood, wore the same jacket, rode the same bus. But now, wherever he went, someone always stood. Not because he demanded it, but because people finally saw him. The Westlake Hotel Group implemented a company-wide veteran awareness program. It wasn't just for show. Their CEO met personally with veteran-led nonprofits. Staff were required to complete workshops not just on military protocol, but on human dignity. They changed how they welcomed guests. They changed how they listened. 3 months after the gala, Raymond received another invitation. This time, it came in a sealed envelope, hand-delivered by a woman in a sharp blazer with marine pins on her lapel. "I'm the hotel's new director of veteran relations," she said with a quiet pride. "A new role," she added, "one we should have had years ago. We're doing things differently this time. No tuxedos, no champagne speeches. We're hosting job fairs, offering housing support, connecting veterans to healthcare resources. Would you help us get it right?" Raymond agreed, but with one condition. "Invite the veterans no one sees," he said. "The ones sleeping rough, the ones who don't come to galas because they're still fighting battles no one thanks them for." He paused. "They need this more than I do." The event was renamed Service Beyond Uniform. It became an annual tradition, not just at Westlake, but at partner hotels across the country. No VIP lounges, no dress codes, just genuine recognition, real support. 6 months after the incident, the former hostess and security guard completed training at the Veteran Center. They now lead workshops for other hospitality professionals. The title of their session, Respect Before Recognition, Seeing the Unseen.